they wanted like Wanda and Vision and superhero stuff, but that's not what it was about. And I just thought that that was such an interesting way for them to do it. But again, if it's a Netflix release and they all come out at once, people are skipping over those episodes. They're like, well, screw that. I mean, I want to get to the fun stuff. You know what I mean? And they'd never think about those episodes again. So that part of it about it being a 1 week is really cool because we do get to sit down and analyze these episodes and really kind of look at each one painstakingly itself instead of just blowing through it and be like, okay, what do you think? Like
Yeah,
that I think is a big event.
for sure. I will say I would not change the format. Like I wouldn't change it to where it was all 6 Loki episodes when we binged it because this is part of the fun and part of the enjoyment of doing it in this weekly process. Not only something to look forward to, but like you said, actually being able to appreciate the detail and really the full-fledged movie level production value also that all of these are getting. We really get to appreciate that. And like you were saying, where some people maybe wanted a bit more of a classic Marvel with WandaVision or whatever. I think what the MCU does so brilliantly, and it's definitely shown in each of these 3 shows, is that despite the fact that there's some sort of formulaic MCU quality to every single one of these properties, each one is still completely different from something else, or from any of the others, right? Like if you compare Ant-Man to Thor Ragnarok to Loki, yes, they exist in the same universe and they all have sort of like an MCU feel, but they're completely different types of, like, Ant-Man's a heist movie, right? WandaVision, I don't even know what you would categorize it as. Loki almost had like sort of a buddy cop feel with him and Owen Wilson. They managed to make each one fit into its own unique little genre, even though they're all part of something bigger and connected. And that I think is one of the most brilliant parts of what Kevin Feige's done. And it shows most with this weekly format because, like you said, we get to overanalyze and really appreciate every single piece of each show.
Facts, absolutely. You summed it up.
I love it. It's great. Anyone have anything they want to add? Anything? Anyone down in the chat want to add anything? Want to come up and speak? Or Justin or Josh? You guys have anything else you want to add? I
Oh,
mean, this
give
has
me
been a
gems. I
great
forgot.
convo.
Got to give you guys gems.
You
I
know what?
will.
I was like, I haven't even
I
done it.
will say that I know. Well, I thought you used to get one from being a speaker, but I guess that they took that away too. But the thing that like from this series the most is it introduces everything coming forward, right? With the different timelines and the different multiverses that exist.
Yeah.
It was kind of like I wasn't expecting that. I don't know if you guys were, if you read stuff before, or you just kind of like, I wasn't expecting them to go to different multiverses and different timelines. I didn't, I mean, I saw some in the preview, him being in different places, but this sets up later this year, obviously, with Spider-Man and, having multiverses, but it also sets up, later down the line with Doctor Strange. So like this just opens up so many different levels, and I said it last week, and I think I said it 2 weeks ago. It gives the MCU and Kevin Feige so many different options too,
Yeah.
especially having, as it showed, I think it was in episode 1 with the different variations and different types of Lokis, and now we have a female Loki, and it opens up to, Thor. Like, is this going to be, we're supposed to have a lady Thor. Is it going to be Jane as we know it? Is it going to be Jane from a different universe who takes up the Thor mantle? Are we going to get
Ooh,
uh,
interesting.
are we going to
That's
get
interesting.
Ironheart, which is the female Iron Man that's out there? Are we going to be able to get a different version of Chris Evans as Captain America from a different timeline, or Tony Stark from a different timeline that comes in and makes a cameo in a movie later down the line? It opens up so many different options for them to use and do, and even replace different characters. I mean, you could bring back Black Widow if you wanted to. You could, from a different timeline, and we kind of saw that too at the in Endgame, right? Where now we have Gamora back in the universe, but there's like so many different options and so many different things they can do with these multiple timelines to bring in different types. If we could have a Hulk versus Hulk battle for Christ, we could. There's so much that they can do, and now that we fully are kind of getting that understanding and that grasp of what the multiverses and what the different timelines and what the different variations of these characters could be and can be. Red Hulk comes into play. Like, there's just so much to go to unpack here going forward that, I think this just opened up just immense possibilities for Kevin Feige and the MCU.
Absolutely. Those are some cool ideas you're throwing out there. They need to hire you over there at Marvel, Josh. You got some good ones.
I wish.
I mean, well, and it's crazy because you're right about these movies coming out, right? So it's Spider-Man at the end of the year, which we know is confirmed that there are going to be other Spider-Man in it, including Alfred Molina. And it seems like Maguire and Garfield are both going to be in that version, which is going to be interesting. And so we'll kind of see where that goes from there. Then we have Multiverse of Madness, which of course is Doctor Strange. And then the third one is the new Ant-Man movie, which is going to be Quantumania. So those three movies, I think, are going to be really interesting. And look, you mentioned Kang. We didn't talk about him much this episode because there wasn't really much mention of him the last episode. But Kang the Conqueror seems like he's going to be the kind of this new big bad for Marvel. Well, the Young Avengers, who we've already talked about, Enchantress is a member of the Young Avengers in the comic books. The new Falcon is a member of the Young Avengers, and of course, Wanda's kids are members of the Young Avengers. And the first bad guy that they fight is Kang the Conqueror. So it's interesting how, it seems like there's a lot of different things coming. And of course, Quantumania features Kang the Conqueror. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see where it goes from here. Those three movies are going to really kind of piggyback off what happens in this movie, or in this show, I should say, and kind of leads us in this direction. And maybe this is why the Eternals came through, right? Maybe the timeline gets destroyed, and all of a sudden the multiverse is open, and it's like, holy crap! And the Eternals are like, whoa, hey, now we get to step in. We haven't stepped in for anything, even friggin' Thanos wiping out half the galaxy. Maybe we should jump in now because this is not good. That the sacred timeline is now gone and the multiverse is open again. So that could kind of explain why the Eternals are back. So it could lead into a lot of different things. And I love how they're doing it with the shows. Because at first I was kind of like, "Are you going to bring the shows and weave them in? Like, who the hell is going to watch that?" But like, no, it's done right. And again, it's not the and listen, I love Daredevil, and Jeff, who's listening now, is like biggest Daredevil fan in the world. And I watched season 3 of Daredevil. And it's phenomenal. It's a great show, but it's 13-hour long episodes. It's long. It's not easy to get through, right? And so now you're talking about three shows, 18 hours total, right? About 6 hours each. So about 18 hours total for the three shows. So, when you look at it that way, it's really not that bad to stick up with it. And everyone's got Disney Plus at this point, right? If you're an MCU person, you get Disney Plus and you can keep up with these shows. They're not, there's not a million of them coming. And like I said, it's not, oh yeah, like stick with us for 13-hour long episodes. It's not that,
Another thing too that we're just talking about multiverses and bending reality and stuff like that. There's two factions that I'm very excited that are coming over to the MCU. And one thing that we've been trying to do as fans is hypothesize, how are you going to have these two different factions integrate? Is it going to be, Wanda created these people, or is it going to be this or that? The multiverse allows you to drop both of these factions into the MCU, because I think we're going to space, we're doing Earth, we're doing quantum level. I think we're kind of, those are going to be the different things that we're going to have, and then there might be one giant thing that brings everybody back together again. But in order to introduce the X-Men and Fantastic Four, could these multiverses, could these different timelines, could these different realities bring both of those factions to modern day as we know it, on whatever timeline we're in on Earth, and that will help tell the Earth. Because I mean, let's face it, right? It's now that we know about space and stuff like that, it's hard to continue to stay on Earth and do things with guys like Falcon Winter Soldier, without new baddies and stuff like that that are relevant to Earth, right? But that drops a whole new set of villains on Earth, a whole new set of, so Could the multiverse open that up? And that's how we get X-Men. That's how we get Fantastic Four.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because it's like, where do these guys all come from, right? And so, of course, we know that Scarlet Witch in the comics kills half the mutants, and so does she create them in this universe, or do they come from a different multiverse? And then how do they fight it? So it's interesting because the Infinity Saga obviously just finished, right? Could this kind of these next like 2 or 3 phases of the MCU be like a quote unquote timeline saga where they're now fighting this battle to kind of keep the right timeline, and which timeline is the quote unquote sacred timeline. And now there's a million timelines that are all fighting for power, right? And next thing we know, like Christopher Nolan's writing it, like Tenet's already been written. I mean that blew my mind. I was like was thinking about different timelines, and I'm like, wait a second, like Tenet could do that. I don't know if you've seen Tenet, but that one was like, it's out there.
No,
It's a great movie. It's a great movie, but people don't get it. But I get it. But either way, but it's like could this be the next thing where it's like they're all fighting for a timeline, but then the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and X-Men all come together, and that could be a different spin on it. Like the X-Men could be fighting against the Avengers at the beginning because they're coming from a different timeline and they think their timeline is the best timeline, and then they kind of come to this realization that they're fighting together. So there's a million different ways they could do it, but now that once the multiverse opens, who the heck knows?
And it would also explain too, because this is the thing that I always think of, right? Like when there's this world, threat to the world, and we know about the superhero universe, and Marvel's building their own, but just in comics and video games, whatever TV, whatever, however you watch it, if there's something as big as a thing, where the heck is everybody? Don't you think everyone should be involved in this? Not just the Avengers. Don't you think the X-Men should get up off their couch in upstate New York and come be like, okay, we need to help out here, or Reed Richards, fly over there with the Fantastic Four and be like, okay, we could wipe out half of Extinction. We need to work. We need to all work together. But if this is opening up the chance to have new heroes and new groups and stuff like that come in and be in play, the timelines in the multiverse might be the best way to do it, because now you're not questioning, well, where were the X-Men with the whole Thanos thing, or where was Fantastic Four when the whole Thanos thing was coming, unless all of that's going to happen and take place afterwards, which then doesn't kind of make sense, canon wise with comics and everything like that. Obviously the MCU is going to do their own thing, but you still be like, okay, so you can't help. We got Evan Peters, right? And even if it was just a tease and it means absolutely nothing, you still can't go back and think, well, yeah, Magneto got his powers, in at a concentration camp, and back in the '60s is when this was supposed to, the '50s, '60s is when this was supposed to all kind of, the mutants were supposed to be coming up, and whatever. You know the story. I don't need to tell it to you, but you know it will make it seamlessly fit in if they're from a different timeline or a different multiverse, instead of being like, okay, so they've just been chilling this whole time.
Well, 100%, and that was kind of the big question with Captain Marvel, right? If she is this big ex machina that could win basically against anyone, like what the hell, dude? How come you weren't around when they were fighting Thanos, right? And so, that's certainly something that that not that they missed, but you're right. Like if you're kind of like, well, yeah, these guys were around this whole time and like they're super powerful. Like how come they didn't help out? Like not once. They just like, we're good. Like it just. That's kind of the part of it. So you feel like you'd hope at least that it's a situation where you can kind of now bring these people in and say, oh yeah, well they were in a different universe and it was a parallel universe, or looks similar and everything kind of looks the same, but it's a little bit different, right? And so there is kind of an easy way out from there, and then you can bring them back in, or you can do this saga for now, and then they go back to their universe, and you stay in your, like who knows? So there's all different ways you can kind of play it and kind of see how it goes. But it is going to be really interesting, man. Once once we assume the multiverse opens, I mean, we're going to have to assume it does because